back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are into a little football chatter, a little post-Preakness chatter. Hope you bet the right horse, none of the Baffert horses, the ass muscle. It was tough sledding out there for some of the railbirds over the weekend. Lucas, however, was monitoring all things Orioles and the Yankees, and you can find that out at Baltimore Positive, talking all things about quarter pole expectations and realities with the Orioles. And then there are the Purple Birds. We are getting our crab cake tour beginning. Fadley's, Costas, I'm wearing this good-looking gear here. We're at State Fair on Friday. We're going to have crab cakes around here. And as my friend Tony Delarose once said, crab cakes and football. That's what we do around here. So there you have it, Luke. What do you think?
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds good. I mean, we talked about it a little bit with our Orioles discussion, but the fact that we're talking about recapping a Preakness weekend, Orioles playing games, Ravens, rookies running around in Owings Mills. I mean, these were all things a year ago at this time that weren't happening. So it is fun to be moving back towards normalcy in that way on the sports calendar.
I can even go to a Nationals game if I want to. I can go to a Caps game.
Yeah, I mean,
go to a lacrosse game if I want to.
Right. I mean, it's fun. I mean, like, again, the last year just put in such perspective things that we take for granted just as sports fans, as people who, love, going to baseball games, or, in our case, getting to go out and watch a bunch of rookies run around in shorts and trying to say something meaningful about it.
We take it for granted, but let's think about this, all right? In your whole lifetime, other than a Little League game you missed because you caught a cold, or your dad had to take you to Myrtle Beach and you missed a tournament or something, like, tell me something that didn't happen. The 89 World Series, right? There was an earthquake, right? I mean, they had 9/11 at the Olympics in Munich and still put the games on. I mean, Kennedy shot. They played football games. I mean, the Orioles played with tanks circling the building, and I'm not going to bring that back up. Kevin Cowherd wrote a book. You can go check that out. But I'm trying to think of things that didn't really happen. I can't think of anything that, other than one hand of things that didn't happen. Then everything didn't happen, right?
Right. I mean, for me in my lifetime, I'll be 38 years old in October. 9/11. I mean, you think, a week's worth of baseball games and a weekend the NFL. Remember, the Ravens were supposed to have the Monday night game against the Vikings. That got pushed to the end of the season as a result. I mean, but beyond that, and even that,
like the roof blow off in Houston.
Yeah.
Right. That I mean, I'm literally thinking when there were scheduled games that did not happen, even on short notice. There was that weird fire, San Diego and Arizona games that wasn't us, but
right.
I'm trying to think Terps games getting snowed on, or just anything that would shove things around. Very, very rarely. It takes a 9/11 to shove scheduling around or to stop a concert. I mean, I think all the Springsteen shows, all the concerts I've ever seen, how many actually canceled the night before? The band couldn't make it. I mean, I've been to thousands of concerts, and there's been one or two. Tesla didn't make a gig a couple of years ago. They were sick. But things happen in our society. They really do. Planes take off. When I'm supposed to get to Japan, I get there. Things really happen for us up as we are. Things tend to happen. In the last 15 months, nothing's happened. So anything that happens, dude, I had a beer at a bar.
Yeah.
I went to the Chaucer. Yeah, I had a beer at a bar in Highlandtown. I did, and I'm bragging about it. I had lettuce wraps, and I almost had the wings, but I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, and even the things that did happen over the last 14 months didn't happen at times you expected. Preakness was my birthday weekend last fall. I mean, what?
Before or after the Masters last fall?
Masters wasn't that November? I can't even remember. It's so strange. And these are things that 18 months ago have happened over this period of time that someone would have said you were an idiot. You're crazy for suggesting the very notion of something like that. But here we
I
are.
was still pissed that night when Pearl Jam canceled. I'm like,
Yeah.
how dare they?
I mean, here we
And
are.
now, like, I'm getting to the point where, like, those tickets are on my app, and one day those dates are going to appear. And
Yeah.
whatever that Oakland shows, I have
Yeah.
tickets back-to-back nights in Oakland, and I'm like, just happen before they rip it down. They rip the Murph down on me. So, like, I'm holding on for just anything, that
Yeah.
feels like normal because it was all kind of ripped, man. In football, I have the purple thing behind me right now. The Vegas date, Chicago date, Detroit, Denver. I'm trying to think trips and this and that. It feels real. I mean, it feels real. I spent an hour talking about Joe Flacco the other day with the University of Delaware. Like, it feels like he's going to put a Eagles helmet on. Like, it's all feeling real again. And that's cool. It's just
Yeah.
fun. It's a feeling none of us have ever had, like getting out of jail a little bit, right?
No question about it. And I mean, again, bringing it back to the sports context, I mean, that's what in so many ways made this last year plus so difficult, that when you're experiencing tough times, sports are something that people would lean on as an escape, right? I mean, job situation, family, whatever. Put on a ball game,
Well,
you forget
think
about it
about
for
in the
3 hours.
pandemic, the
That wasn't
numbers
there.
that Jordan television
Oh,
documentary did.
absolutely.
People were they needed something, right?
Social
Literally.
media was on fire for those Sunday nights in May when we're watching 20, 25-year-old highlights of Michael Jordan. And
Michael Jordan owned another month of like
yeah.
the world of sports. It's
And
crazy,
I
right?
mean, I really enjoyed that. But someone like me, I was I grew up in the
And then
'90s,
Tom Brady goes and wins a plague Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's fun. And I mean, the Ravens, this weekend, rookies in Owings Mills, rookie camp. Reporters, if you're fully vaccinated, no longer have to wear masks watching practice. There you go. I mean, I was shuddering thinking about the possibility of another summer of training camp, 95 degrees, and having a mask just trapping the humidity in front of
I'm
my
not
mouth
being a
and
dick,
nose.
but did they make you show your card?
Or a copy of it, yeah.
Okay, but it's not honor system. It's like
No.
good.
Well, and here's perfect example. I am not 2 weeks out from my second shot just yet, so I wear a mask, but it was fine. And I know OTAs in a couple weeks, so I won't have to. It's cool. It's again one of those simple pleasures that you think about that like having a beer at a bar and watching a ball game, like things that we've all done hundreds of times, and you couldn't do that. So, but Ravens rookies out in Owings Mills. Rookie camp's always interesting because everyone kind of thinks about it in terms of like we talk about OTAs or training camp, the observations, who looks good, who looks not so good. These guys are learning how to practice. I mean, it's literally you're talking about rookies, a few first year guys who were on the practice squad all last year, but so many of these guys who have no idea how to practice at an NFL level. I mean, there is coaching going on between every single rep, and it's slow.
Aren't there like missing places on the field too where they don't have enough?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because that was actually a point I was going to make. With the pandemic, with the protocols and some of the rules that are still in place, one thing that was different about this rookie camp compared to past years was you had a maximum of 5 tryout guys that you could bring in. In the past, they'd bring in 20 or 25 tryout guys, maybe not that many, maybe 15, 20, somewhere in that neighborhood. Not because they had any intention of signing any of them other than maybe 1 or 2. Justin Tucker was a famous tryout guy. I'll remind everyone, but they want bodies to be able to practice. So what was interesting was
stand it inside linebacker, move your
they
head.
had 5 technically guys that are described as first year players: Jake Breeland, Nigel Warrior, Eli Wolf, guys who were on the practice squad last year. In Breeland's case, missed all of last year because he hurt his knee at Oregon his last year, fall of 2019. But they had those 5 guys. They had their 8-man draft class, and then they had 9 rookie free agents, and they had 5 tryout guys. You do the math there. You need 22 guys on the field, and preferably you want 22 guys at 11 unique positions on each side of the ball, right? So it's a very interesting operation rookie camp is, and that's why I really don't take any major takeaways. Rashad Bateman, he looked good, sure, why not? Odafe Owe, yeah, he looked the part at edge rusher, but for the most part, these are guys that they had their offensive line, I believe, had at least 2 tryout guys just on the offensive line because they needed a full offensive line. So it's a very relative to what you see even in OTAs as they get started here in a couple weeks. It's night and day. It's clunky. It's slow. It's a little more disjointed. You clearly have some players who don't know what they're doing, and it's interesting to see coaches. T. Martin and Keith Williams, guys they've brought in to coach up the wide receivers, very, very hands-on with Bateman, with Tylan Wallace, with some of the other young receivers they had in rookie camp. And then on the flip side, you had Wink Martindale and Rob Ryan, who, of course, is the Ravens inside linebackers coach now, kind of carrying on. Wink is sending blitzes. You could tell Harbaugh is, maybe not thrilled with blitzing the heck out of a poor rookie quarterback with a patchwork offensive line. And of course, there's no contact. So, we're not talking about anything here that is skirting the rules. But it's interesting to watch in that way. But there's a lot of proverbial hand holding going on because, hey, practicing at Minnesota or practicing at Penn State or practicing at Texas Christian, wherever you're talking about, it's not the same as an NFL practice. So it's always an interesting reminder to me with this kind of being, back to a more normal season now, having this, unlike last year, that first rookie camp, how different, how much slower it is than when they start ramping up in the spring, and then of course getting into training camp, preseason, and regular season. So it's always interesting in that way. But hey, it's fun to get a look at these rookies, and you see what Rashad Bateman looks like in purple, wearing a number 12 jersey, and seeing Owe lining up at rush linebacker. It's fun. You start to gain more and more context as far as what these guys look like and what their roles might potentially be.
Well, I hope they're on the all-bus team, right? I mean, they should look good getting off the bus, right?
Yeah.
They're first-round
Sure.
draft picks.
Yeah. Oh, you definitely, and that's the thing. I mean, I see some of the observations. Well, Bateman looks really good. Well, he should compared to undrafted free agent wide receivers that might be out there. I mean, that's just kind of the way it works. So, but hey, it's good to get a glimpse at them. I think John Harbaugh generally was pleased with what he saw. I mean, good effort. Guys made it through practice, but it's when you're talking about only having 25, 26 guys out there, it's a very weird dynamic to see an 11-on-11 drill and there are only 4 players standing off to the side. So it's different in that way because the reps and, normally you watch a practice, first team's in there, then second team's in there, then they usually have like a second/third team. So they'll have 3 different units cycling in there. So a slower pace of this, if for no other reason beyond these guys still learning so much, the pace just can't be quite as quick because you're only talking about 22 guys out there and a few extras at best.
Any business other than them signing the kid and, putting the Ford logo on there, God bless you, Dennis. Baltimore Ford putting the Ford logo on that. By the way, Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday. If you're following along on our WNST tech service as well, all brought to you by our friends at Coons Baltimore Ford. Any news? Any edge rush? Certainly you don't want any injuries, right? I mean,
Right.
that would create depth chart things. But are there any additions and salary cap issues? And they're not giving Lamar any money. I mean, they're done shopping, right, for the most part in that way from a big ticket standpoint.
Well, I mean, I think, you do look at some of the edge names that are out there. I mean, we know Justin Houston visited with the Ravens several weeks back. As of the weekend, things seem to be fairly quiet on that front. I think it's a case, they drafted Odafe Owe. They took, they took another edge rusher later on, fifth round pick.
By the way, Jalen Ferguson got FaceTime on the Preakness broadcast.
Did he really?
Yeah, he was dancing around, on the red carpet wearing he was styling, profiling. Yeah, and they had all these actors I'd never heard of. It was like, we're at the Kentucky Derby. It's Tom Brady over here, and Elvis is here tonight, and Bono is here with Mick Jagger. We're here at the Preakness, and there's Jalen Ferguson is on the red carpet here. So, it was kind of like a little bit of a, I thought we need to get more stars at the pre. Not nothing wrong with Jalen because he was the
Yeah,
biggest star of the whole pack. Like literally,
it
he was the guy I knew.
that's funny you mentioned that because it reminds me of Kenny Young being at the ESPYS a couple years ago, and I was like, really? I mean, nothing
Well,
against Kenny
here's the
Young, and
deal. Here's the funny part. They're like, really great rapper DJ. What's his name? Was here, and he's like, yo, I'm DJ. What's his name? And I'm like, great. So I don't even know who they are. And then they're like, in reality star. And then there's Ravens defensive player Jalen Ferguson.
there you go.
And he
There
was
you
doing
go.
his thing. So I thought, cool. Good. So I'm just letting you know when you're mentioning guys to get after the core, I just want to give Jalen a little bit of love.
Well, there you go. And I mean, it lends itself to what I was just talking about. I mean, the Ravens, of course, they draft Oweh. They draft Dalen Hayes in the 5th round. Hayes, more of a Sam linebacker, a guy who did drop into coverage a little bit at Notre Dame. Keep in mind, Matthew Judon and Tyus Bowser were their edge guys that dropped into coverage. Judon's gone. Bowser steps into a bigger role. Of course, they pay him, what they paid him, which wasn't lucrative, but it was real money. And now they're going to be looking for another edge guy that can drop into coverage a little bit. So Dalen Hayes, maybe that's his path to the field on a very limited basis. We'll see. But as you mentioned, Jalen Ferguson, Pernell McPhee's still around. I think it would still make sense, the potential to bring in another edge guy. But, at this point in time, well, it might just be that they want to evaluate these younger guys for the time being. And, Justin Houston, I mean, Indianapolis has all but closed the door on bringing him back at this point. That had been something that pre-draft had been talked about, but they've made pretty clear they've moved on in that way. So, that there's some guys out there still, but not necessarily a lot of suitors. So I think it's possible. I mean, their salary cap picture, they don't have a ton of money, but they have the flexibility that they could add a little bit more here and there. So there's money to make another modest type move. Whether that comes to fruition or not, I'm not sure. But I think what's really interesting now, and we've touched on this a little bit, but okay, rookie minicamp is in the rearview mirror. We're now approaching OTAs. We know that the NFLPA has made such a public stance as far as players not attending. We know Calais Campbell, significant status within the NFLPA. Ronnie Stanley, player rep. I'm going to be really interested to see what attendance looks like. I mean, the rookies will be there. We know that, right? But once you get beyond those very young players who are desperately just trying to make their mark and make a roster, I'll be interested to see what attendance looks like, because we've seen it now with a couple injuries around the league. As much as we hear about the whole, worst kept secret that these workouts, they're quote voluntary, but they're really not. What we've seen play out with a couple of these situations, like Juwan James in Denver, that when you're not working out at the team facility and you get hurt away from the team facility, teams, they can go after your money, and they can, that can be considered a non-football injury. Now, teams traditionally, when you kind of look at what the pre-COVID expectation was, usually they wouldn't go after money. I mean, remember famously Terrell Suggs popped his Achilles the first time in 2012. He was, whether you believe him that he was doing a workout test or whether he was playing basketball, as there were witnesses at the time, the Ravens didn't go after his money. And, certainly there are certain guys you're going to necessarily decide not to do that with compared to other guys that might be, someone in the final year of their contract, for example. But I think with some of these injury situations around the league, it does kind of poke holes in the union's position of, we don't want guys to attend workouts. Well, that's fine. But then what happens when someone gets hurt? They're going to lose out on their money then potentially. So, long story short, I'll be interested to see what the attendance has been like, because historically, everyone but, a handful of veterans, depending on the week, everyone else is out there, and everyone else is out there running around and working out and trying to, carve out whether it's a starting role or just a back end of the roster spot, whatever.
That's a nice little competitive week too, usually.
Yeah, it is. It is. So again, I'll be interested, and I do know, and Harbaugh even said as much right around, I think it might have been the pre-draft it was a pre-draft press conference because that was when the off-season workout program started. He confirmed at the time that, yeah, they've had other people in the building besides just your injury rehab guys. So I think we're going to end up seeing more attendance than probably the NFLPA would like in a perfect world as far as the messaging. But again, it's really easy to, what, talking about a Pro Bowl caliber, 10-year veteran, those kind of guys, it's easy to tell them to stay home. It's a different animal when you're talking about younger players, when you're talking about veterans who are on the roster bubble. You can tell
you're
them
talking about transition players like Tyus Bowser that
right.
You're kind of counting on to make that next step.
Well, but my point is, I mean, it's
or even Calais Campbell to sort of get to know the guys around him. Period.
Right. Well, but Calais Campbell's the guy who doesn't need he doesn't need OTAs. There are lots of guys who need it, and it's really easy for the NFLPA to say we want to have a united front and not show up for voluntary workouts. You have a lot of guys that they don't make the team. The NFLPA is not doing anything for them.
Even in the case of Zeitler and in the case of, what they've done at right tackle now, like to bring in veteran guys, like, I always saw good camaraderie in that. There was golf involved. It was always, it was a good, it was good. It was good. As a fan, I don't pass judgment on that, whether it's good or not. It was good for the players. It's good for the team. It's good for the coaches. It's good for the camaraderie. It was good. As long as nobody leaves in a stretcher, blows an Achilles, it was good.
Right. And I mean, that there's always the possibility of that happening, but the difference, and this is where it serves the players well to be involved in the off-season workout program and to be at voluntary workouts, because in this day and age, you don't go to training camp to get in shape. Everyone's in shape. If you're not, you're failing the conditioning test and you're in the doghouse from day one in late July. So the thought is you're putting in the work anyway. Do it at the facility. And look, that doesn't mean that there aren't guys that, you don't have to have perfect attendance or anything like that. And there are guys that miss some workouts here and there. And, their position coach is probably annoyed for a day, but then they get over it because they are voluntary workouts. And I want to be clear about that. I just think it's an interesting stance, not that it's a stance that NFLPA hasn't taken before, but how loud they've been about it. But to see now a couple injury situations where guys, they've been told to stay away, they get hurt away from the facility, and now their money goes bye-bye. And teams are going to take a little more of a stiffer stance there because, well, the union's taking a louder stance about it. So again, long story short, these guys are all putting in the work. They're working out 12 months a year. Maybe they take early February off, but then they're right back at it. So for these guys, from a financial security standpoint, that's where it really benefits them. Not that they have to be there every day, but that their presence is at least semi-regular in the building, because it's just, financially they're protecting themselves. And, you hate seeing a situation where a guy gets hurt away from the facility and now he's going to lose his money. And again, I'm not defending the teams for doing that, but you're kind of seeing this. And I think a lot of it really stems from, I'm guessing this is the union, and they've talked about COVID and the protocols and what happened last year, but I think a lot of this stems from the 17 game schedule and the players not being thrilled about that. And I can't blame them, but we knew it was inevitable when we saw what the CBA terms were, that the 17 game schedule was an option. You knew the owners were going to exercise that, especially on the heels of the pandemic.
Luke Jones will be in and around the Orioles home all week. Uncle Luke will be around all week as well. You can follow him out at Baltimore Luke on Twitter and Facebook and other places. And as the Ravens go, so do we. I'm jamming Jones in a little maybe Bowie trip or something. I'm putting this crab cake tour together and seeing that the Orioles and the Nationals have some overlay games in the middle of the month that could be interesting if I took some Baltimore. They're playing the Braves. Maybe there's a Sherhole, Smithsonian. I don't know. I'm trying to work some angle here for some crab cakes. First angle is this. Fadley's is in the books with John Sarbanes. We had an unbelievable conversation about the history of it all and making crab cakes and why they taste so delicious and what Nancy Devine does and never does to a crab cake. Will be at Costas this month as well, sampling over there. I'm trying to organize my certain celebrity for this, so I'm a little at the mercy of celebritydom. Tell Bucky to call me, somebody, all right? So we'll get it together. I'm working on it so we can have some crabs and some crab cakes together. 30 crab cakes in 30 days. Lots of stuff going on. Luke's chasing sports. I'm chasing stuff. We're here. I'm Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, having some wise conversations brought to you by our friends at Wise Markets. We used to call them intelligent